Greetings, Internet, and welcome to Parsing John. Today we're going to take a look at verses 20 and 21 of Chapter 1. Got our Latin rubric here. This is everything we're looking for as we take apart these words and try to come up with a correct translation. All right, let's go ahead and read them aloud. Et confessus est, et non negavit, et confessus est, quia non sum ego Christus. Et interrogaverunt eum quid ergo Elias est tu? Et dicit non sum. Propheta est tu? Et respondit non. All right, there we go. Here at verse 20, we find the word et. That one's very easy. It's just a conjunction translated and. Our first verb is confessus est, and that's going to be a periphrastic phrase with a perfect passive verb. Est is going to be third person singular. If you recall, we use the forms of sum with the fourth principal part of a verb to give us the perfect passive, or in the case of deponents, we use the third principal part with the forms of sum. If it's the present form of sum, then we know it's perfect passive. If it's the imperfect form of sum, we know it's pluperfect passive. And if it's the future form of sum, then we know it's future passive. So this is third person singular, perfect. And since this has got an active meaning, this tells us that this is most likely going to be a deponent verb. Can't remember the first principal part myself, though. Third singular, perfect deponent, and indicative. And we could also say masculine nominative singular, if you really wanted, though that's not normally what we do when coming across these verbs. All right. And he confessed. He being John here, the only singular thing that we've had in this entire section. All right. And non makes the next verb negative. Not. Negavit. Got negao v there tells us that this is a first conjugation verb. The A confirms that even more so. It tells us that it's in the perfect tense. So third singular perfect. And this one is going to be active and indicative. And not denied. And the way we would actually say this, we would change it to did not deny, but we'll leave the writing as is. And confessus est again, so this is the exact same thing. Just bring that over. He confessed. Quia. Quia in Latin just means because. Pretty simple word. This is the better of the because words. There's also quod, but quod is very easily confused with quod, the nominative or accusative singular neuter form of qui, quae, quod. So very happy that that one's there. Very clear what our translator here means. But we do have a direct quotation here. We know because we've got sum, which is first person singular, present, active, and indicative of sum esse fui, futurus. So direct quotation. Whether the because belongs in this direct quotation or in the initial clause, we'll have to determine based on what the direct quotation actually says. So non, not, so I am not. Ego is nominative singular personal pronoun. It doesn't have a gender because both men and women use the same pronouns here. So, first person pronouns, I should say. I, so we don't need that one. Okay, and then we want either a prepositional phrase showing location or a predicate. As we take a look at this, we've got Christus. US there is second declension masculine, nominative, and singular. So we've got our predicate. And of course, this just means Christ. So then we would try because in both of the clauses and see which one makes most sense. All right. And he confessed, and he did not deny. And he confessed, quote, because I am not the Christ. Or, and he confessed, and he did not deny, and he confessed because, quote, I am not the Christ. So, all right, the second one makes the most sense. So we're going to put our quote mark there. All right, as we take a look at verse 21, we see that this is a different person. So this is going to end our quote right there. Go ahead, add punctuation. Et. And interrogaverunt. AV there tells us that this is probably a first conjugation. Erunt is third person, and it is plural, perfect, and active indicative. And this word means what it looks like. Interrogate or ask. We're going to go with ask because that's easier. All right. And they asked. And who are they? Well, we go back to verse 19, which is in the context of this entire passage. And we're going to want to look for a plural option for our subject. John can't be it. There's only one John. So we have the Jews here, but the Jews aren't in this location with John, we know, because of what this says. The Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem. So it's going to be the priests and Levites who are most likely the subject of this verb. All right, all the way back there. Okay, and then one asks a direct object. Eum here, is id is what that comes from, right there. That's going to be accusative and singular masculine, him. So then we have direct quote again because of S right there. So open the quotes. Oop, forgot. There we go. All right, going to our verb. S is second person singular present of sum esse fui. Present, active, and indicative. R, to here is going to be nominative and singular. Tu tui tibi tete. No gender again. You. And then we want either, again, a prepositional phrase or a predicate. And we've got Elias right here. And this is as far as I'm aware at least, a indeclinable, or not a standard declinable word, because it's a name that comes from Hebrew, so it would have been normalized into Latin, though this one actually resembles identically the Greek one, so technically the normalization happened in Greek first, and then Latin here just steals it whole cloth. So we can't really decline this thing, but it's going to be nominative and singular masculine as a predicate. And this is Elijah, I believe. Yes, I remembered how, and by remembered I mean I looked it up, how to spell his name since the last Greek video. Ergo means therefore. Okay, and then quid. Quid is from quid. It means what. And that is nominative, singular, neuter. So we can, quis would be masculine or feminine. Or I suppose it could be accusative, but that doesn't really make much sense there. All right, so we would separate this from this. What, therefore, question mark. Are you Elias? Elijah? Question mark. Et dicit, change of person here, so this ends our direct quote. Et means and. Dicit, dico, dicere, dixi, so this is going to be third person, singular, present, active, and indicative. And he said, sorry, not says, that would be not said, that would be past tense, says, non sum, profita est, that's a different one, so we've got a new quote here, not, and sum, I am. If you recall, we've got that one right there, so we don't need to parse it again. Save ourselves some time. Profit to S, new clause, question, sorry, quote. S, same thing as what we had a little bit earlier, right there. So R2 is the same thing. You, profita, that would be nominative singular. And it's masculine even though it's a first declension. This is a rare one. Now, normally in classical Latin, there are only 3 non-name first declension masculine nouns. And they are agricola, nauta, and poeta, or farmer, sailor, and poet. Now, with ecclesiastical Latin, when there was more theology and when the Bible was being transferred into Greek, the number of masculine first declension nouns kind of exploded. I don't actually know how many there are, but this is an interesting one. I don't honestly know if Latin has this as a first declension word prior to the Vulgate coming in. I would presume that no, it doesn't, but I could be wrong there. So it just means what it looks like. Prophet. All right. That ends this quotation. Et and respondit. This is respondo, respondere, respondi. So, since the perfect stem and the present stem of this verb are identical, and since it is a third conjugation, that means the third person singular, which is what this ending is, it would be the same for both present and perfect tense. So we don't know which it is, so we have to write both of them down. Present or perfect, and it is active and indicative. And he responds or responded, quote, 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 not. So we've got no linking verb there, no form of sum, which is very common actually in Latin. If you can leave sum out, why not? At least that's what I imagine them saying. I know Pliny does it all the time. It appears that John the Baptist decided to do it here. Now, as to figuring this one out, the way that we would do that is we would go and we would take a look at the Greek text and see what tense is the verb in the Greek text, which I just so happen to have right here. So we take a look at it. We've got apekrithe is the Greek equivalent of respondit, and this one is aorist, which corresponds to the Latin perfect tense. So this one is going to be correct, and this one is going to be correct. And we'll leave that as is. Take a closer look when we actually finish the whole section and get the Greek and Latin side by side. From the top of verse 20, and he confessed, and he did not deny, and he confessed because I am not Christ. And they asked him, what therefore? Are you Elijah? And he says, I am not. Are you prophet? And he responded, not. So far, so good with these two verses. But what we should really start doing, and I'll try to remember to do this from now on, when we have full pages like this, go back to the beginning of the page and all the way through when we have finished them. So from verse 19, so we get the whole context. And this is witness of John, when Jews sent from Jerusalem priests and Levites to him, in order that they might ask him, who are you? And he confessed, and he did not deny, and he confessed because I am not Christ. And they asked him, what therefore? Are you Elijah? And he says, I am not. Are you prophet? And he responded, not. So there's the context of verse 19 through 21. I hope taking a look at these two verses and then including that one in was useful to you and you found it interesting. I also hope that you join me in our next video when we tackle 22, maybe 23. That depends on how long 22 is. Thank you for joining me. Farewell.